I lived in downtown Los Angeles for a while. I bought groceries there, went to school there, and walked out every morning into air that smelled like coffee and urine in roughly equal measure. That stretch of time changed how I think about cities, because downtown LA, DTLA, as the people who love it and the people who are trying to sell it both call it, is a genuinely strange place. It holds, simultaneously, one of the densest concentrations of unhoused people in the country and some of the most expensive contemporary art in the world. There is a concert hall designed by Frank Gehry and a tent encampment 2 minutes walk from its front entrance. There is a blue chip gallery on the same block as a $3 taco truck, which is next door to a perfume shop selling a single fragrance for $300. That kind of contradiction, in other cities you have to go looking for it. In DTLA, it was just the route to class. The best analogy I have for this neighborhood is a forgotten toy. The kind you played with as a child, then put in a box and forgot about, then you're moving apartments years later and you find it, and there's this moment of recognition, this was actually good, why didn't I take better care of it? Now everyone wants to pick it up again. Los Angeles abandoned its downtown for decades. Then the artists came in, then the developers, then the brands, and now the city is in the slow process of rediscovering something it left behind. Welcome to Zenith Massif, a concierge for a different way of seeing. The stories hiding in plain sight. The adventures you didn't know to look for. In 1972, the architecture department at California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, broke apart. The department chair, Ray Cape, left. He took a group of young faculty with him, Tom Main, Glenn Small, Jim Stafford, along with a cohort of students, and relocated to an abandoned warehouse in Santa Monica. The warehouse had reportedly at some point been an LSD laboratory. They renamed the new school the Southern California Institute of Architecture, which eventually became SCI Arc, and started over. 7 instructors, 70 students, no fixed curriculum. The idea that students should have agency over their own education was, at the time, genuinely radical. The school Cape founded operated on the belief that architecture couldn't be taught the way other disciplines were taught, that it required a kind of institutional courage to let students find their own questions before anyone handed them answers. Tom Main, one of SCI Arc's co-founders, went on to establish the firm Morphosis and won the Pritzker Prize. Eric Owen Moss, Michael Rotondi, the architects who came to define Los Angeles' design culture in the decades that followed, all came out of that founding orbit. In the early 2000s, SCI Arc moved to DTLA, into a former Santa Fe Railroad freight depot running along the LA River. A quarter-mile of open concrete, no partitions, no conventional classrooms, just a long unbroken space in which models accumulated on floors, students slept under desks, and half-finished installations hung from the rafters. I studied there, and one thing became clear in that time. The Arts District's formation as a cultural zone is not separable from the school's presence. When SCI Arc relocated, it brought an influx of students and faculty who needed studios, cafes, a certain density of intellectual energy around them. That density created the conditions for more density. The school and the neighborhood entangled themselves, and neither is fully explained without the other. Walk east from SCI Arc for a few blocks, and the landscape changes completely. Skid Row is one of Los Angeles' most familiar place names, and one of the most legible on Google Maps, which outlines its boundaries with an explicitness that feels almost accusatory. Roughly 50 blocks from Main Street to Alameda, between 3rd and 7th. Tents, shopping carts, people sleeping in the open. Walking through it produces a specific feeling, not quite fear, more like the sensation that something has gone wrong at the level of premise. The answer to what exactly is in the history. DTLA's geography is defined by freeway. The 101, the 110, the 10 form a rough rectangle around the neighborhood, a moat of elevated concrete that separates it from the rest of the city. What's inside that moat is a small, dense urban core, and within that core, the conditions that produce Skid Row were set in motion over a century. The story begins with rail. In the late 19th century, Los Angeles built its freight terminals at the eastern edge of downtown. The rail yards drew workers. Workers needed cheap housing. Single-room occupancy hotels, SROs, multiplied in the surrounding blocks. Seasonal agricultural laborers, longshoremen, migratory workers of all kinds arrived by train, rented a room, found a bar, found a way to pass the time. That ecosystem persisted for decades. After the Depression, the city expanded outward, into the valley, into Orange County, into the suburbs. downtown's functions dispersed, the people left behind in those SRO hotels were increasingly the people with no place else to go. In the 1960s, the city began demolishing them. Thousands of cheap rental units disappeared, condemned as fire hazards. The residents had nowhere to go. In 1975, the Los Angeles city government formalized what became known as a containment policy, concentrating homeless services within Skid Row, which had the practical effect of concentrating the unhoused population there permanently. Put the services in one place, and the people who need them will cluster around that place. The neighborhood became, by policy, the designated container for a problem the rest of the city preferred not to see. Southern California's mild climate made the outdoor life survivable year-round, which drew people from colder places. The mental health and addiction crises of subsequent decades compounded everything. Today, Skid Row holds an estimated 12,000 people, 2,000 to 5,000 of whom are sleeping on the street on any given night. This is a 10-minute walk from SCI Arc, a 5-minute walk from Hauser and Wirth. That proximity, the most expensive contemporary art in the world, within walking distance of the largest outdoor homeless encampment in the country, is not something DTLA has resolved or is close to resolving. It is simply the condition of the place. Some people find it incoherent. The artists and writers who have always been drawn here tend to find it the most honest thing about it. The Arts District sits a few blocks north of SCY Arc, bounded roughly by the rail lines, the LA River, and 4th and 7th Streets. Its bones are industrial. Brick walls, loading docks, the remnants of print shops, cold storage facilities, light manufacturing. The lofts are former warehouses, the galleries are former everything else. The sequence that produced it is one that will be familiar to anyone who has followed the life cycle of a post-industrial urban neighborhood. Artists arrive first, drawn by cheap rent and high ceilings. Cafes follow, then boutiques, then the rents go up, the artists leave, and a neighborhood that was built on creative friction becomes a neighborhood that sells the aesthetic memory of creative friction to people who can afford to live in it. This pattern has played out in Berlin's Mitte, London's Shoreditch, Brooklyn's Williamsburg. DTLA's version has its own flavor, the particular quality of California light, the building stock that tolerates almost anything, the tension with Skid Row that never entirely disappears. Before the district took its current shape, it was a real working place for several important artists. Ed Ruscha, one of Los Angeles's defining conceptual figures, worked in the area for years. Mike Kelly, the artist who spent his career colliding pop culture with psychological darkness, had a studio nearby. Mark Bradford, who later represented the United States at the Venice Biennale, and whose paintings now sell for 8 figures at auction, started here. His studio is still in Los Angeles. Hauser and Wirth opened its Los Angeles space in the Arts District in 2016. A sprawling, repurposed flour mill, several thousand square feet of contemporary art, free admission, a restaurant in the back. The Zurich-founded gallery operates in London, New York, and a handful of other cities. A lot of people don't know that walking in is free. Inside, work by Louise Bourgeois, Mark Bradford, Rashid Johnson, the kind of names that move rooms at auction. Baru, the restaurant at the back, was named the Los Angeles Times Best Restaurant of 2024, a Korean-influenced 7-course tasting menu at $125 a head. It's probably the hardest reservation in the neighborhood. Labo is on the same block, the fragrance brand that started in Tribeca and became a kind of shorthand for a certain sensibility. The industrial shelf aesthetic, the compounding counters, the willingness to charge real money for something you can't see. Their Santal 33 is the one everyone knows. Bergamot 22 is sharper, cooler, more difficult, and in some way more arts district. The taco trucks that park on the street outside Hauser and Wirth, $3, $4, some of them there for 20 years, serve the same block as the gallery. The person eating a taco on the curb is as likely to be a gallerist or a studio director as anyone else. That's not a story about democracy. It's a story about what a neighborhood looks like when it hasn't finished being gentrified. Night Gallery operates off the main streets. You need to know to look for it. White walls, industrial feel, shows that require something from the viewer. It's one of the serious institutions of the Los Angeles contemporary art ecosystem, representing artists who are being taken genuinely seriously, which is a different thing from artists who are being marketed seriously. Dover Street Market Los Angeles opened in the Arts District in 2018 in a former warehouse on 2nd Street. Comme des Garçons, Dior Men, Tom Brown, and a rotating cast of labels most people haven't heard of, all under the same roof, curated according to Rei Kawakubo's framework of treating a retail space as an exhibition. There are worse ways to spend an afternoon. Bestia has been on 7th place since 2012 and is still nearly impossible to book. Italian in the loosest sense, handmade pastas, bone marrow bruschetta, a noise level that requires a certain tolerance for being unable to hear the person across from you. It shouldn't still be this good after 12 years. It is. Moving west toward Bunker Hill, you hit MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, opened in 1979, the first museum in Los Angeles dedicated exclusively to contemporary work. The building is Arata Isozaki's, red sandstone, geometric skylights, a deliberate quietness that lets the work inside be louder than the architecture. Jackson Pollock, Mark Roscoe, Cindy Sherman, Bruce Nauman, work that sells at 8 figures in a building that's free to enter on the first Thursday of every month. Little Tokyo is a few blocks east. Japanese Americans have been gathering in this part of the city since the 1880s, when the railroads brought the first waves of immigration to Los Angeles. The community took root, built institutions, built a neighborhood. In February 1942, 2 months after Pearl Harbor, Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. More than 120,000 Japanese Americans, the majority of them American citizens, were forcibly removed to internment camps. A significant portion of them came from Little Tokyo. Their properties were seized. Their businesses were taken over. Their houses were sold. After the war, people came back to find that what they built was gone. The reconstruction of Little Tokyo took decades. What exists now is a neighborhood with that history pressed into it. You can feel the weight of it even if you don't know the story. The ramen restaurants and mochi ice cream and stationery shops exist on top of something that was deliberately destroyed and painstakingly rebuilt. Daikokuya's chashu ramen is, by reasonable consensus, one of the great bowls of noodles in Los Angeles. That it exists at all is a form of stubbornness. Grand Central Market has been open on South Broadway since 1917. It is not a farmer's market in the contemporary sense, not a food hall in the curated sense. It is a cross-section of Los Angeles. Mexican, Chinese, Armenian, Central American vendors alongside newer arrivals. Egg Slut, the egg sandwich counter that now has locations in Tokyo and London, started here, all occupying the same long arcade. Spanish and Cantonese and English mixing in the air. Bananas for $1.50 next to a 40-year-old birria stall next to a specialty coffee operation that charges $6 for a pour-over. The market's longevity is its own argument. It has survived depressions, earthquakes, epidemics, and every wave of downtown's decline and partial recovery. It persists because it provides something that the curated food hall cannot, the actual texture of a city. Here is something many people don't know about Walt Disney Concert Hall. The exterior is free to enter. Those stainless steel sail forms that seem to be enclosing the building are not, in fact, keeping you out. On both flanks, staircases lead up through the steel, into the gaps between the panels, to a rooftop garden overlooking all of Bunker Hill. No ticket, no one to stop you. The views are extraordinary. The walk through the building's skin, the curved steel on either side, the Los Angeles sky at the top, is an experience that Gehry made deliberately public. In a city that is famously organized around the private automobile rather than the pedestrian, this kind of gesture is unusual. It's worth noting. The concert hall's origin is 1987. Lillian Disney, Walt Disney's widow, donated $50 million to build a world-class venue for Los Angeles. Of the 70-odd proposals submitted, the selection committee chose Frank Gehry, at the time still primarily known as a Los Angeles architect, years before Bilbao made him a planetary figure. What followed was 16 years of interrupted construction, funding that disappeared and returned, design revisions demanded by security consultants and insurance companies and commercial interests, a project that stopped and started so many times that Gehry went off in the middle of it and built the Guggenheim Bilbao, which made him the most famous architect alive, and then came back to finish a building he'd been fighting over for the better part of a decade. His design logic, as he described it later, was inside out. Begin with the interior, the acoustic properties, the warmth of the wood, the sightlines from every seat, and let the form grow outward from those requirements. The original plan called for stone cladding. It became stainless steel. Those curved panels catch the Southern California light and turn it. Silver in the morning, gold in the afternoon, gray under cloud. The building changes all day. Yasuhisa Toyota designed the acoustics. The interior is a vineyard configuration. The orchestra at the center, the audience surrounding it on all sides. No traditional hierarchy of stage and stalls. The organ pipes at the rear of the stage were, at Gehry's insistence, separated from their mechanism, and arranged as a sculptural object. French fries, he called them, though the official description is more decorous. Under certain light, the pipes look as though they are about to speak. The Broad sits next to Disney Concert Hall and is easy to underestimate from the outside. The exterior is a honeycomb of GFRC panels, glass fiber reinforced concrete, 2,500 of them, each installed by hand. The building was designed by Diller Scofidio plus Renfro around a structural concept they call the veil and the vault, an outer skin that wraps the whole building, and inside it a storage vault for the collection. The gallery spaces occupy the space between those two layers. Inside, Jeff Koons, Cindy Sherman, Kara Walker, Jean-Michel Basquiat, roughly 2,000 works in rotation. Admission is free. The building cost $140 million. It was built by Eli Broad, who is one of the most consequential figures in post-war American business and one of the least discussed. He grew up working class in Detroit, studied accounting, started building houses in Detroit after graduating, moved into insurance, built Sun America into a multi-billion-dollar financial company, sold it to AIG in 1999 for over $1 billion. Then he spent the rest of his life giving the money away, primarily to Los Angeles cultural institutions. The Broad Foundation has lent its collection to museums around the world for decades. Almost every major building on Grand Avenue carries some trace of his involvement. He died in 2021 at 87. The museum was his last large gift. He insisted the admission be free forever, because art, he said, should be available to everyone. I was an intern at Frank Gehry's office. The mixed-use development on Grand Avenue that opened in 2022 was the first project I encountered there. It was a model on a work table, foam and cardboard at a scale where you had to lean over to read it. Now it's 45 stories, 436 residential units, a Conrad hotel, and 164,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space on the same block as the concert hall. The developer was Related Companies, who built Hudson Yards in New York, the largest private real estate development in American history. The project cost approximately $1 billion. Gehry's stated intention was to design at a human scale, to make a building that felt like it was welcoming pedestrians rather than looming over them. Whether he succeeded is a matter of ongoing debate among the people who work and live on that block. What's unambiguous is the relationship. Two major buildings by the same architect on the same avenue, one a concert hall and one a mixed-use tower, informal conversation across Grand Avenue for the next century. The LADWP building, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power headquarters, was designed by William Pereira and completed in 1965. It is a modernist office tower with a large reflecting pool in front, fountains, geometry, open space, a particular kind of civic dignity that mid-century American public architecture sometimes achieved. Christopher Nolan used it for Inception. The choice was not arbitrary. The film's central obsession is the instability of the real, the question of which layer of experience is the true one. Nolan used water throughout as a visual device for that ambiguity. The LADWP Plaza's reflecting pool has a natural mirror quality. Stand in front of it and the building doubles into the water, the sky and the structure existing simultaneously on the surface. The distinction between up and down becomes briefly, pleasantly unclear. That spatial quality, the flickering of what's real, was precisely what Nolan wanted. The Dark Knight film chase sequences in the tunnels and overpasses nearby. Los Angeles' infrastructure, its freeways, its underpasses, its vast spaces designed for cars rather than people, gives humans moving through it a particular quality of smallness that is useful to certain kinds of cinema. There is a building adjacent to Crypto.com Arena that is impossible to ignore and impossible to explain without some embarrassment. It is large, its facade is deteriorating, its windows are sealed, its walls are covered in murals and tagging on every accessible surface. It is the most spectacular failed development in downtown Los Angeles, a luxury high-rise project that ran out of money, became entangled in legal disputes, stopped construction, and has been standing in its unfinished state ever since, directly across from the arena entrance, visible to everyone who arrives for a game or a concert. Los Angeles artists found it. The abandoned structure has become, incrementally, a massive outdoor canvas. The city's creative energy moves faster than its development timelines. A building that couldn't be finished became, in the waiting, a kind of art. The arena opened in 1999. Bruce Springsteen played opening night. It is still called Staples Center by almost everyone, because Staples Center is what people called it for 23 years before the naming rights were sold to Crypto.com. The new name has been in use since 2021. It has not taken. The arena anchored the revival of the South Park district. LA Live, the entertainment complex that grew up around it, exists because of the foot traffic the arena generates. More than 250 events a year, nearly 4 million attendees. The shared home of the Lakers, Clippers, Kings, and Sparks. The only arena in the NBA with 2 home teams. The Los Angeles Lakers were founded in 1947 in Minneapolis, arrived in Los Angeles in 1960, and have won 17 NBA championships, among the highest totals in league history. The franchise has had, in each era, a player who defined it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, now LeBron James. The continuity of excellence across that span is not accidental. It is the product of an organization that has consistently understood something about the relationship between the city and its team. The game I attended was LeBron against Steph Curry. By the time I sat down, I understood it was going to be unusual, because the celebrity density in the attending crowd resembled a film premiere more than a sporting event. David Beckham was in the seats. Several people I recognized from films sat nearby. What I remember most is the production, not the basketball, though the basketball was extraordinary. The American entertainment apparatus at a major sporting event is total. The halftime show, the sound design, the lighting, the pacing between plays. It's a complete experience, engineered with the same attention that goes into a film. Floor seats begin at a few $1,000s. The best seats in the house are 5 figures. I understood that night why people pay it. Road DTLA, on the south edge of the Arts District near Santa Fe Avenue, is the most ambitious adaptive reuse project in downtown Los Angeles. The site, roughly 30 acres, a cluster of a dozen industrial buildings from the 1910s, brick and steel, and high-ceilinged interiors, was acquired and converted without demolition. The original structures were kept. The interiors were remade into offices, shops, restaurants, galleries, and event spaces. Outdoor plazas were laid with grass, planted with trees, furnished with seating. The result is a place that operates on a different logic than most commercial developments. The experience of spending the better part of a day there without any particular purpose is entirely plausible. Smorgasburg, Los Angeles sets up in the Row DTLA courtyard every Sunday. The outdoor food market that originated in Brooklyn, now running dozens of vendors in the Los Angeles version. Peruvian anticuchos, Filipino ube desserts, Japanese ramen, Uyghur lamb skewers. You carry a plate to the lawn, sit in the sun, watch the foot traffic. It is a remarkably uncomplicated way to spend a Sunday morning. South Broadway was once the theater street of Los Angeles. Between 1910 and 1931, more than 12 movie palaces lined these blocks, the most concentrated stretch of historic theaters in the country outside of New York. Neon signs, ornate lobbies, the grandeur of an era when cinema was still new enough to command civic-scale architecture. Then the city expanded outward. Shopping malls drew retail away. The car made walking obsolete, and Broadway declined into a stretch of wholesale shops and cheap retail, its theater facades intact but dark. What's left is worth knowing about. The last bookstore occupies a 1914 bank building on Spring Street, the largest used and new bookstore in California, spread across 2 floors. The lower level organized with books as architecture, arches built from paperbacks, tunnels of stacked volumes, a labyrinthine arrangement that consistently takes longer to navigate than you expected. An upper level holds an art gallery and a collection of small vendors. You will stay longer than you planned. In 2021, Apple completed the restoration of the Tower Theater, a 1927 movie palace, the first theater in California to install a sound system, now an Apple store. The restoration took years and considerable money. The Italian Baroque interior was preserved. Painted ceilings, arched columns, original ornamental plasterwork. The result is a store that looks, at first glance, like a cultural institution hosting a technology exhibition. It is the most beautiful Apple store I have been in. Whether that constitutes a critique or a compliment depends on how you feel about the colonization of historic architecture by retail. On Main Street, there is a building that is easy to walk past. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1924, designed for, in the language of the era, businessmen, bankers, and theatergoers. It was built for a version of downtown Los Angeles that no longer exists. The Depression arrived, Broadway declined, Skid Row grew up around the hotel's southern end. The Cecil began accepting whoever could pay a few dollars a night. Over the following decades, the hotel accumulated a history that stretches the category of coincidence. Multiple suicides, a confirmed connection to Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who stayed there in 1985 during his killing spree. The 2013 disappearance and death of Elisa Lam, a Canadian student whose final days played out inside the hotel. The last footage of her showing her behaving strangely in an elevator, pressing multiple floor buttons, making odd gestures into the corridor. Her body was found weeks later in a rooftop water tank. That elevator footage circulated widely online and became one of the most discussed pieces of surveillance video in internet history. Ryan Murphy has said it was the primary inspiration for the 5th season of American Horror Story, set in a Los Angeles hotel. The Cecil is not particularly hard to find. The water tank is still on the roof. The building now operates partly as a hostel, partly as permanent housing. Whether the history has left anything behind in the building itself is a question I'm not qualified to answer. On the second Thursday of every month, DTLA runs an art walk, dozens of galleries and exhibition spaces opening simultaneously, free, across the neighborhood. It is not a grand cultural event. It's more like a neighborhood making a habit of itself. People moving through the streets, going into spaces they might not have entered otherwise, having conversations they wouldn't have had. The event's persistence over years has something to do with what the neighborhood is actually trying to be. For a long time, the comparison being made about DTLA was to Lower Manhattan, both post-industrial urban cores, both with artist-to-developer sequences in their recent history, both with high-end cultural institutions sitting alongside financial infrastructure. But DTLA is not Lower Manhattan, and the version of itself it's been building toward doesn't look much like it. There is no density here, not yet. On a December night, you can walk 10 blocks in any direction and see very few people. There is space and light and a pace that doesn't require tension. The city inside the freeway loop is still figuring out what it is, which is in a city as determinedly unfinished as Los Angeles, probably the most honest condition available. What DTLA has become is itself, a place with a Pritzker-winning architecture school and a world-class gallery, and a building that's been standing unfinished for a decade as an accidental public mural, a place with a $10,000 arena seat, and a woman sleeping in a tent 3 blocks from it, a neighborhood where the most expensive art in the world occupies the same zip code as the largest outdoor homeless encampment in the country. Not a copy of anything, not finished, but legible, finally, as a place with its own logic. Early morning in Los Angeles, that specific dry brightness, flat and clean, before the heat arrives. The SCI ARC students who were up all night are still asleep at their drafting tables. Hauser and Worth opened a show the previous evening. The people on Skid Row slept in their tents. The vendors at Grand Central Market opened at 7. What stays with me about DTLA, after the years of living there, after the mornings on the bike, after all of it, is the quality of its incompleteness. Most cities that have been through what downtown Los Angeles has been through would have resolved by now into something cleaner, something easier to describe. This one hasn't, it's still in process. The toy is still being picked up slowly, and nobody quite knows yet what it's going to become. That's probably what makes it worth watching. Have you spent time in downtown Los Angeles? Leave a comment and let us know, or find us on Substack where the conversation goes further. Paid members get early access to upcoming episodes. Next time, we're spending the full hour with 2 architects who change what cities look like, Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid. See you there.